For 2 years I helped my cousin Lin Jianjun run his pig farm. With my own breeding and feed techniques, I turned 20 sows into 200 finishing pigs. That year the farm cleared 2 million yuan in profit, but when it was time to share the money, he only transferred 80,000 yuan to me. He laughed and said feeding pigs was simple labor, the kind of work even a chained dog could do. I looked at the bang notification on my phone and felt my fingers go stiff. I did not argue. I did not make a scene. I only remembered everything. 2 years earlier, Lin Jianjun's farm had almost collapsed. His 20 sows had caught blue ear disease. Some were lost, some were sick, and the entire farm was on the edge. Back then he came to my family home with cigarettes and liquor, practically begging me, his younger cousin who had worked for a large breeding group, to come back and help. He promised me 30% of the shares if I used my skills to save the farm. He said that when the farm grew bigger, he would never treat me unfairly. I believed him. I quit my city job that paid more than 10,000 yuan a month and returned to that poor mountain village. For more than 700 days and nights I lived beside the pig farm in a tiny boardroom of less than 10 square meters. When a sow had a difficult delivery, I stayed up all night. When disease pressure rose, I led the workers through sanitation, medication, and isolation. I dragged that farm back from the edge. I developed a probiotic fermented feed formula that lowered the feed-to-meat ratio from 3.2 to 2.5. Each pig could earn more than 200 yuan extra. I built a biogas system for waste recycling, solving the environmental problem and saving a large amount of electricity. In 2 years, that little farm that had almost gone bankrupt became one of the best-known farms in town. That year, 2 batches of finishing pigs alone brought in 2 million yuan in net profit, but the 30% share he once promised became only 80,000 yuan for my so-called hard work. I asked him if his promise still counted. He laughed and said he had only been speaking casually. He said I was just a poor kid, and without him taking me in, I would not even have enough to eat. He told me to take the money and get out, and said I was not needed at the farm. Next year, the villagers watched. No one spoke up for me. Even village chief Wang only stood to the side with his hands behind his back and sighed. My parents stood behind me, shaking with anger, their eyes red. They wanted to step forward and argue, but I held them back. I looked at Lin Jianjun's smug face, and a plan slowly formed in my mind. I said, fine. 80,000 it is. I accepted the money. He was surprised at how calmly I reacted. Then he became even more arrogant. He told me to go to the city and find a job, because pig farming was not something a poor kid like me could handle. I did not look at him again. I only said, Jianjun, remember this 80,000 yuan in half a year. It will make you regret this for the rest of your life. Then I took my parents and left behind me. Lin Jianjun and his wife Lai Huan laughed without restraint. On the way home, my father sighed heavily and asked if I was really going to accept it after suffering for 2 years? I look back at that brightly lit pig farm and smiled coldly. Suffering is never wasted. What he owes me, I will take back with interest. Ye thought that with only 80,000 yuan, I could do nothing except leave in disgrace and work for someone else. Ye did not know that this 80,000 would become the first stone that brought down everything he had built. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and opened the notebook I had filled over the past 2 years. Inside were survival rates for every batch of pigs, feed conversion data, disease prevention plans, fermented feed formulas, and the complete eco-farming plan I had never been allowed to launch. In Lin Jianzhen's farm, he only cared about short-term profit. He never wanted to invest in ecological circular farming, but that was exactly where the future of pig farming would be. I opened a map and focused on the abandoned low-lying land at the west end of the village, a place everyone called the Rotten Mud Pond. The land covered about 20 mu. It sat low, flooded whenever it rained, smelled bad, and had been abandoned for 5 years. Villagers said even giving it away would be difficult, but in my eyes, that worthless mud pond was perfect for ecological pig farming. The low area could be rebuilt into biogas ponds and oxidation ponds, solving the biggest environmental problem in pig farming. The open area nearby could hold pig barns. Ryegrass and mulberry grass could be planted around it. Fermented manure would fertilize the grass, and the grass could then be mixed back into the feed, forming a complete circular system. The site was far from the village, so there would be fewer neighbor disputes. Its biosecurity conditions were also much better than farms built inside the village. The next morning, I took my 80,000 yuan and went straight to the village committee. Chief Wang was shocked to see me. He thought I had come to complain about Lin Jianzhen. I told him I was not there to settle old scores. I wanted to lease the rotten mud pond for 5 years and asked how much that rent would be. He thought I had lost my mind. He said grass would not even grow there, and I had only 80,000 yuan. Land, barns, piglets, and feed all needed money. He told me not to throw away my hard-earned cash. I said I knew what I was doing and asked for the rent. Seeing that I was determined, he sighed and said the land was useless anyway. If I truly wanted it, 1,000 yuan a year would be enough. But he made it clear that if I lost money, that village would not be responsible and would not give me any subsidy. I signed the contract on the spot, pressed my red thumbprint, and paid 5,000 yuan for 5 years. I had 45,000 yuan left. By noon the news had spread through the entire village. When I went to inspect the mud pond, villagers gathered around to watch. They pointed and laughed, saying I was crazy for spending my hard-earned money on a mud pond. Lin Jianjun and Lai Huan also came. He sat in his Audi, lowered the window, and laughed until he nearly leaned back. He said that if the money felt too heavy in my pocket, he could take me to the city to enjoy myself, so why throw it into the mud? He offered me a job as his helper for 3,000 yuan a month, with meals and lodging. Lai Huan mocked me too, saying, I wanted to be a boss, but who knew whether the mud pond could raise golden pigs? I ignored them. Wearing chest-high waterproof pants, I stepped into the cold, muddy water and measured the depth and terrain. I wrote down every number. The mud was black and cold, but a fire was burning in my heart. Lin Jianjun thought that taking the old farm meant taking everything from me. He was wrong. The real value was never in the barns, it was in the technology in my head and in the experience I had earned through 2 years of hardship. While I was measuring, a white pickup stopped nearby. A young woman in an outdoor jacket, with her hair tied in a ponytail, walked over and introduced herself as Su King, a technician from the county animal husbandry and veterinary station. She had just been assigned to our town for disease prevention work and had heard that someone wanted to build an eco-pig farm in a mud pond. I was surprised when I looked up. Sunlight fell across her face, and her eyes shone brightly. I never imagined that this stranger would become the most reliable partner on my road back. Su King squatted beside the mud, smelled a little of it, then looked through my site plan. Her eyes grew whiter as she read. She recognized the circular eco-farming model right away. Drainage ditches, biogas ponds, oxidation ponds, forage planting zones, clear functional divisions, and even biosecurity isolation belts. She asked whether I had studied this field. I told her I majored in animal science and had worked at Daxing breeding group for 2 years. I handed her my notebook, including my fermented feed formula, disease prevention plan, and construction standards. The more she read, the more surprised she became. She said, my plan was more professional than the standard plans their station gave to small farmers, especially the probiotic feed formula that could lower the feed-to-meat ratio to 2.5. For the first time in 2 years, someone understood the value of my work at a glance. Lin Jianjun only cared whether pigs grew faster. He never cared how much my technology was worth. I told Su King that I had wanted to launch this system at the previous farm, but the owner only cared about short-term profit and refused to spend the money. I briefly told her what had happened. Su King frowned and said it was unfair. He had taken the benefits of my technical achievements and pushed me aside, but she also said that working on my own would let the model show its full strength. Then she took a pen and began adjusting my site plan. She said I did not need to fill the whole lowland. Instead, I should follow the terrain and dig 3 main drainage channels leading into the southern main pond. Gravel should be laid at the bottom to prevent mud from clogging the drains. A water storage pool should be built at the highest point so it could irrigate grass in dry seasons and help drainage in rainy seasons. The barn should be built on the highest northern side, facing south for the best light and ventilation. She calculated that once the site was improved, it could hold at least 2 standardized barns, 80 base sows, and about 1,500 finishing pigs a year. Looking at the revised plan, I suddenly understood what I had missed by working with the terrain. Instead of fighting it, I could save a huge amount on earthwork. I thanked her again and again. She smiled and told me not to call her technician Sue, just Sue King. She said she had returned from the provincial academy because she wanted to help local farmers use scientific breeding methods. I was the first small farmer she had seen who truly understood ecological farming and already had a complete plan. Then she offered to be my technical consultant for free. I could hardly believe it. I was short on startup funds and had no one to help with site inspection or policy applications. Her appearance was like help arriving in the snow. She explained that if my farm succeeded, it could become the town's ecological farming demonstration case, and she could use it for research and promotion. We would help each other. She also told me that the county had support policies for young people returning to start businesses, plus subsidies for ecological farming. My project met the requirements. She could help me apply for at least 100,000 yuan in interest-free loans, plus free vaccines and biosecurity supplies that solve my biggest problem at once. After paying for the land, I had only 45,000 yuan left. Barns, piglets, and feed all cost money. With a loan, I could build a proper standardized pig farm from the start. That afternoon, Sue King and I crouched beside the site for 4 hours. We finalized the construction plan, drainage system, and disease prevention process. Every detail was polished carefully. Before she left, she told me to prepare my ID and land contract. She would help me handle the paperwork at the county office, and approval should come within a week. That night I told my parents about the policy support. Their worried hearts finally relaxed. My mother said she knew I had ability and that I had been wronged before. While I was eating, Lin Jianjun called. His tone was full of mockery. He said he heard I had found a young woman from the livestock station and warned me not to get fooled. He asked what a woman could know about raising pigs and told me to return the mud pond and work for him. Instead, I calmly refused. I told him to worry about his own farm because spring was a high-risk season for disease and his disinfection process was full of holes. I hung up and blocked his number. He thought I was cursing him, but I was telling the truth. His farm's biosecurity process had been created by me. After I left, he stopped taking sanitation and disease prevention seriously, and he even dared to use cheap off-brand vaccines to save money. Spring would be his first real test. After the Lantern Festival, the county approved my support application. The 100,000 yuan interest-free startup loan arrived in my account, along with a full batch of free vaccines, disinfectants, and biosecurity supplies. Sue King kept Her word, she completed all the paperwork and contacted a construction team that agreed to build the barns at the lowest reasonable price. Villagers came every day to watch the rotten mud pond change. The mocking voices became quieter. Some people admitted that the drainage ditches looked professional, even better than Lin Jianzhen's farm. Others said I might truly succeed. When these comments reached Lin Jianzhen, he could not sit still. He drove his Audi over several times, watching with a dark face and muttering curses. I ignored him. I knew he was anxious. He was afraid I might truly build a successful farm and take away his reputation as the town's big farmer. He was also afraid villagers would learn that his old farm had grown only because of my technology. A few days later, trouble came. One night after the construction team had prepared the barn foundation and laid the ground film, someone destroyed the site. The next morning, I found the film cut to pieces, the drainage ditches blocked with mud and stones, and the water storage pool drained dry. The lock had been forced open. Su King arrived and said it was clearly meant to stop my farm from being built. I knew Vu had done it. Lin Jianzhen had been at the site the afternoon before, making sarcastic comments about my barns. Su King asked if I wanted to call the police. I shook my head. There was no camera and no clear evidence. It would only create a report and delay construction. Lin Jianzhen had counted on that. I did not call the police then. I spoke with the construction team and adjusted the schedule. We built the barn framework first while other workers relayed the ground film and cleared the drainage ditches. Everyone worked from morning to late night in one day. And one night, the damaged site was restored and the progress was even faster than before. At dawn, I looked at the renewed site without any panic. This was only the beginning. The more Lin Jianzhen tried to stop me, the more carefully and beautifully I would build this farm. I asked Su King to help install high-definition night vision cameras on all 4 corners of the site, including the wall base. That footage would be stored in the cloud for 24 hours, even if someone destroyed the camera host. The video could not be erased. I knew Lin Jianzhen would not stop. Sure enough, 3 days later, rumors spread through the village. People said my farm was built on unlucky ground. At pigs raised, there would carry germs, that the piglets I bought were sick, and that the whole village might be affected. Some villagers even went to the village committee and demanded that Chief Wang stop my construction. When I arrived at the village committee, Lin Jianzhen was already there, sitting in a chair and stirring up fear. He said animal disease was not a joke and, if anything spread, all pig farmers in the village could lose everything. He accused me of ignoring everyone else's safety for my own profit. Several villagers followed his lead and demanded that I stop. I looked at his smug face, smiled coldly, and threw a stack of documents onto the table. I told him that if he thought my farm had biosecurity problems, he should first read the official approval documents. They included a Pig farm construction and disease prevention. Inspection report stamped by the County Livestock Bureau as well as an animal disease prevention certificate. Every item met the national standard and my farm's requirements were even higher than many farms in town. My farm had isolation belts, disinfection pools, harmless treatment rooms, and full procedures. Everything had passed official inspection. Then I threw another set of documents in front of him. I reminded him that his own farm had been fined the previous year for environmental violations, that his manure water was still being discharged improperly, and that his disinfection and vaccination records were a mess. I also mentioned that he had used cheap vaccines from outside sources and lost several finishing pigs after injection. Then I told him that spreading false animal disease rumors could carry legal responsibility. I had audio recordings from villagers and video of him entering my site at night to cause damage. I asked if he wanted to see it. As soon as I said that, Lin Jianjun's face turned pale. He had never expected me not only to have complete legal paperwork, but also evidence of his rumors and site damage. The villagers fell silent, their eyes toward him changed. Chief Wang looked at the stamped documents, then at Lin Jianjun and told him he had gone too far. If he dared to spread rumors again, the village would not protect him. Lin Jianjun opened his mouth but could not speak. He slipped out of the village office in disgrace. Watching him leave, I felt nothing. This was only the first slap in the face. More would come. By the end of March, the 2 standardized barns were completed. County livestock officials came to inspect and designated my farm as the town's ecological breeding demonstration site. They also planned to promote my model across the county. Su King helped me contact a county breeding farm with purebred large white gilts, Durdock boars, and high-quality piglets. The stock had clear bloodlines, strong disease resistance, and fast growth. Even better, the breeding farm participated in the return home entrepreneurship support policy. Qualified farmers could take piglets on credit and pay after the pigs were sold with no interest. When Su King went with me to sign the contract, the farm director reviewed my plan and disease prevention certificate, then approved 10 purebred large white replacement gilts, 2 Durdock breeding boars, and 50 weaned piglets, worth nearly 200,000 yuan, with payment due after sale. When the trucks carrying the pigs entered my farm, the whole village was shocked. Villagers surrounded the gate and stared at the healthy breeding stock. They said the pigs looked far better than Lin Jianjun's. Some had heard that each high quality so cost more than 10,000 yuan. They realized I was truly building something serious. Lin Jianjun stood at the back of the crowd. His face was dark and his eyes were full of jealousy and fear. He understood what those pigs meant. Once my farm began operating, I had good stock, technology, policy support, and the county's demonstration title. In less than half a year I could surpass the farm he had run for 2 years. That night he asked someone to help him buy a batch of breeding stock too, but the breeding farm refused. His farm failed environmental standards, lacked complete disease prevention records, and had an administrative penalty. It did not qualify for support. He became furious and began telling people I had used backdoor connections and relied on Su King to cheat my way into the policy. I ignored him. My energy was all on the pigs. Every morning at 5, I entered the barns to measure temperature and humidity, record each pig's appetite and condition, and adjust the fermented feed formula. In the afternoon, I disinfected the barns, checked the sows, and vaccinated the piglets. At night I watched that monitoring room, afraid of missing any problem. Su King came almost every day. She helped with health checks, adjusted the disease prevention plan, and brought new probiotic fermentation strains from the provincial academy. With our careful care, the pigs grew quickly. In less than a month, the 50 weaned piglets rose from about 20 jin to more than 50 jin on average. Their coats were shiny, they were lively, none were sick, and the survival rate was 100%. The replacement gilts all came into heat smoothly. The ryegrass and mulberry grass also grew thick under the fermented manure fertilizer. Mixing it into feed saved money and improved meat quality. My ecological circular model had fully started to work. Meanwhile, Lin Jianjun's farm began to show problems. After spring temperatures rose, disease risk increased. He ignored disinfection, used cheap vaccines, and soon pigs on his farm began coughing and having fever symptoms. Several finishing pigs were lost for no clear reason. The vet said it was a secondary infection related to blue ear disease and gave medicine, but it did not help. As more pigs were affected, Lin Jianjun finally swallowed his pride and came to my farm with a pack of cigarettes. He said he had wronged me before and asked me to be generous. He invited me to dinner and asked me to take a look at his sick pigs. I looked at his false smile and found it ridiculous when he withheld my share and mocked me. As someone who only fed pigs, he never imagined this day would come. When he damaged my site and spread rumors, he never imagined this day would come. I told him I was sorry, but I had no time. I had many pigs of my own to care for. Besides, I was only a pig feeder. What technology could I possibly understand? He should invite someone better. His face froze. After a long pause, he gritted his teeth and said, I should not be too proud just because I knew a little pig farming. He said he did not believe his farm could not survive without me. Then he threw the cigarettes down and left. I watched him leave and smiled coldly. Without me, his farm really could not survive. He thought losing a few pigs was the worst outcome. But the real disaster was still waiting. After being rejected, Lin Jianjun did not improve his biosecurity or management. Instead, he blamed everything on me. He thought that if I had not come back and built my own farm, he would not have lost face. The villagers would not have laughed at him, and his farm would not have had problems. He blamed his own incompetence on me. In mid-April, my first batch of finishing pigs had reached more than 100 jin. In 4 more months, they would be ready for market. My probiotic feed was working better and better. Daily weight gain reached nearly 1.8 jin, faster than ordinary feed, and the pigs rarely needed medication. That owner of the county slaughterhouse came to inspect and signed a purchase agreement on the spot. When the pigs were ready, he would buy the whole batch at 5 mao above market price, pay cash, and not delay a single yuan. That evening, Su King, my parents, and I cooked a food dishes at that farm to celebrate. My father raised his glass with red eyes, saying he had never been capable enough and had let me suffer. Seeing me finally rise made him happy. I clinked glasses with him and said life would only get better, but I never expected Lin Jianjun to become so reckless. That night, after dinner, I sent my parents home, returned to the farm, checked the barn doors, windows, and feed room, then went to the small board room to rest. After 2 in the morning, my Phone suddenly sent a camera alarm. Someone had entered the feed room. I jumped out of bed and opened the live camera feed. 2 men wearing masks and caps had forced open the feed room lock and slipped inside. One of them walked with a limp. It was Lin Jianjun. The other was his brother-in-law Lai Bin. Lin Jianjun took a white plastic bottle from his coat, opened it, and poured white powder into my fermented feed pile. Then he stirred it with a shovel and left quietly. I watched the footage shaking with anger. I knew what that powder likely was. In small amounts it might be used as a laxative, but in excess it could cause severe dehydration and organ failure in pigs. He poured in a whole bottle. If I had fed that mixture the next day, the entire batch could have been lost. This was not ordinary mischief. It was meant to cut off my livelihood. I called the police at once and saved the full footage to the cloud in a USB drive, making 3 backups. Within 20 minutes, officers from the town police station arrived. I took them to the feed room, showed the disturbed feed and broken lock, and played the full video. Their faces became serious. They said this was no simple civil dispute. It involved deliberate interference with production. They collected powder samples, preserved the footage, and completed the record. By dawn, Su King arrived too. Seeing the contaminated feed, her face turned pale with anger. She said Lin Jianjun had gone completely over the line and could face serious legal consequences. I looked at the feed and felt my gaze turn cold. I had expected him not to give up, so I installed full coverage cameras, but I did not expect him to dare touch the legal red line so openly. Since he had walked into it himself, I would not hold him back. At 10 that morning, Lin Jianjun was still at home, waiting to hear that something had happened to my farm. Instead, the police came to his door and took him and Lai Bin to the station. The news spread through the village instantly. No one expected him to go so far as to contaminate someone else's pig feed. Villagers said it was cruel and that he had already cheated me out of 2 years of hard work, and now he had done this. Lai Huan rushed to my house in panic, crying and begging me to write a letter of forgiveness. She said Lin Jianjun had been confused and asked me to spare him. This once, she said, if he was locked up, their family would fall apart. My mother felt sorry for her and quietly asked whether I could let it pass since we were from the same village. I helped Lai Huan stand up, but my tone did not soften. I asked why Lin Jianjun had not remembered village ties when he added powder to my feed. Why had he not thought about sparing me when he tried to ruin my entire farm? The law has a bottom line. If he crossed it, he had to face that result. I would not write a letter of forgiveness. When Lai Huan saw that I would not bend, her expression changed. She shouted that he had only added a little something and my pigs were not even harmed. Then she said the matter was not over and ran away. I watched her leave without emotion because the feed had not been given to the pigs and no actual property loss had occurred. Lin Jianjun received 15 days of administrative detention and a 5,000 yuan fine. When he came out, he looked drained and could no longer lift his head. In the village, wherever he went, people pointed at him. He looked at my farm with hatred. But he no longer dared come near it. His own farm, however, had rotted from the roots. During his 15 days in detention, no one managed it properly. Disinfection stopped. Disease, carcasses were carelessly thrown into a ditch behind the farm instead of being handled safely. By late May, the temperature rose above 30 degrees, the environment worsened, and disease broke out completely. First, piglets in the nursery showed fever, diarrhea, and vomiting. Medicine did not work, and more than 20 were lost in one day. Soon the finishing pigs also became sick, stopped eating, turned purple, struggled to breathe, and collapsed one after another. When the vet saw the situation, his face changed. He told Lin Jianjun to report it immediately, because it was a serious, contagious disease. If he waited, the entire farm would be lost. Lin Jianjun panicked. His life savings were in that farm. If that pigs were all gone, he would be ruined. He searched everywhere for veterinarians and bought expensive medicine, but nothing worked. More animals were lost, and the farm smelled so bad that the whole village noticed. When the news reached me, I was doing ultrasound pregnancy checks with Su King. She said it was likely ASF and must be reported to the livestock station immediately. If it spread, every pig farmer in town could suffer. I call the county livestock station at once. Within an hour, prevention officers arrived in protective clothing, entered Lin Jianjun's farm, and took samples. That afternoon, the test result came back positive for ASF. As a category I animal disease once discovered, the herd had to be handled under official protocol. The farm disinfected completely and restocking prohibited for 3 months. When the notice was handed to Lin Jianjun, he collapsed on the ground, his face gray. More than 200 finishing pigs and dozens of sows had to be handled and buried safely. His farm was finished. The whole village heard his crying and Lai Huan's shouting that day. Officials in protective clothing entered the farm, completed the required process, and moved everything to a designated site for harmless treatment. Looking at the empty barns, Lin Jianjun seemed to age overnight. He had lost everything he had earned in 2 years, still owed the feed factory nearly 500,000 yuan and had another 200,000 yuan in bank loans. His only source of income was gone. No one in the village felt sorry for him. They said it was his own result. If he had respected disease prevention, the farm would not have fallen apart. My farm was close by and had no problems at all. That was the difference. Those words cut into him. He blamed me for everything. He believed that if I had not reported the disease, his pigs would not have been handled by the officials. That afternoon, he rushed to the aid of my farm with a kitchen blade and shouted my name, saying I had ruined him. Villagers at the gate were frightened and stepped back. I walked out calmly and looked at him. I told him his farm had the disease because he ignored disinfection, failed to handle diseased animals properly, and broke biosecurity rules. It had nothing to do with me. African swine fever was a serious reportable disease, and anyone who discovered it had a duty to report. If it spread through the village, could he take responsibility for every farmer's loss? I also warned him that threatening my safety at my farm gate was illegal, and if he kept causing trouble, I would call the police. My words were like cold water poured over his head. He looked at me, then at the villager's disgusted eyes. The blade fell from his hand, and he squatted on the ground crying. He said everything was over, the farm was gone, the money was gone, and he was deep in debt. I felt no sympathy. His ending was made by his own choices. I turned back into my farm. His era was over. Mine had just begun. After Lin Jae-jun's farm collapsed, my ecological farm became the town's only large-scale demonstration farm. By the end of June, my first batch of finishing pigs had reached more than 200 jin and was ready for sale. They had been raised with my probiotic fermented feed from start to finish with little need for antibiotics. That meat was firm, richly marbled, and far better than ordinary pork. Su King sent samples to the provincial academy for testing. When the results came back, we were both excited. Every indicator exceeded the national green food standard. The lean meat rate reached 65%, and the unsaturated fat content was 30% higher than ordinary pork. It fully met the standard for high-end ecological pork. With that report in hand, I contacted Zion Feng Fresh, the largest high-end fresh food supermarket chain in the city. They specialized in premium organic ingredients and had dozens of stores across the province. Their purchasing director personally brought a team to inspect my farm. They spent an entire day checking the barn environment, feed formula, biosecurity flow, waste treatment, and circular farming system. They also inspected the meat quality on site. The director made the decision immediately. He said my ecological pork was the best quality he had seen, better than the imported pork they currently sold. They wanted all 150 finishing pigs in this batch at 18 yuan per jin live weight, 3 yuan higher than market price, paid in cash with no delay. 18 yuan per jin. In my head I calculated quickly. 150 pigs, about 220 jin each, would bring in close to 600,000 yuan. After subtracting feed, piglet, and labor costs, the net profit would be more than 300,000 yuan. This one batch would recover my investment and still leave over 100,000 yuan in profit. I signed the purchase contract on the spot. The next day, Zion Feng Fresh cold chain trucks lined up at my farm. Workers in uniform loaded one strong finishing pig after another into special transport trucks. The 600,000 yuan payment entered my account immediately. Looking at the long number in mobile banking, my parents were so excited their hands trembled. My mother kept wiping tears from her eyes. 2 years of injustice and 4 months of hardship became worth it in that moment. As the cold chain trucks drove through the village, everyone was shocked. Villagers gathered by the road, staring at the trucks marked with Zion Feng's logo. They heard the price was 18 yuan per jin, 3 yuan above market price, and that the batch sold for 600,000 yuan. They said my pork was going straight to high-end supermarkets in the city, food for people willing to pay for quality. Compared with Lin Jae-jun begging slaughterhouses not to push down his price, it was a world of difference. Lin Jae-jun stood in the crowd, watching the trucks pass and watching me shake hands with the purchasing director. His face was empty, as if his soul had been pulled out. He had once mocked me for throwing money into a mud pond and called me a poor kid who only knew how to feed pigs. Yet in half a year, I had reached a level he could not reach in a lifetime. He is proud. Audi looked ridiculous beside the cold chain convoy. Then the purchasing director smiled and said they also wanted a long-term exclusive supply contract for the next 2 years. Zion Feng fresh would buy every pig my farm produced. The guaranteed price would always be 3 yuan above market. If that market rose, they would rise with it. If the market fell, they would not lower the price. 8. Also wanted to cooperate with me to launch the King Feng ecological pork brand across their stores. With profits split equally, the villagers exploded with excitement. An exclusive 2-year contract, a guaranteed premium price, and a brand partnership meant my pigs would never be hard to sell and would always command a high price. Lin Jianjun heard it, staggered, and collapsed to the ground. When villagers helped him up, his eyes were full of despair and regret. I looked at him without emotion. I was not trying to humiliate him. My path was simply growing wider, while he had already destroyed his own. That night, I held a celebration dinner at the best restaurant in town to thank Su King, the construction team, and my parents. At the table, Su King raised her glass and congratulated me. I looked at her with gratitude. Without her, I could never have reached that day. I said, it was not something I did alone. We did it together. After the dinner, I told Su King that I wanted to create a breeding cooperative. I wanted to bring in villagers who truly wanted to raise pigs. I would provide technology, piglets, feed, and sales channels so everyone could earn money together. I asked whether she would do it with me. Her eyes lit up and she nodded firmly. She said that was the truly meaningful thing. I smiled. Lin Dianjun thought pig farming was only about pocketing the difference, squeezing workers and cutting corners. He never understood that real farming depends on technology, vision, and helping others earn too. My road would not stop at one farm. The news that I was starting a cooperative spread through the village overnight. Early the next morning, the village committee was packed with people wanting to join. Some apologized for mocking me before. Others said they had lion and wanted me to teach them. They trusted me and said that would follow my standards. I explained the rules. I would provide technical guidance free of charge, supply improve piglets and fermented feed through one system, organize unified disease prevention, and buy back the pigs at above market prices when they were ready. Villagers only had to follow the standards and raise the pigs well. They would not need to worry about sales or technology. More than 30 households signed agreements on the spot. Chief Wang patted my shoulder excitedly and said I had done a great thing for the village, and the village would fully support the cooperative. Just as the cooperative was running well, Lin Jianjun, cornered by debt, did something even more reckless. He owed the feed factory and the bank nearly 700,000 yuan. Creditors came every day. His house was sealed, and Lai Huan was preparing to divorce him. With no way out, he turned his attention to the diseased carcasses that had been buried. After the official disposal, one cooperative member secretly called me. Panicked, he said Lin Jianjun had dug up the buried disease pigs at night and loaded a truck, and no one knew where he was taking them. My heart sank. I immediately understood the law clearly requires diseased animals to be safely disposed of. Slaughter, sale, and transport are strictly forbidden. Lin Jianjun was likely trying to sell them to an illegal slaughter point for cash. This was not only a serious legal violation. It was gambling with public food safety. If meat from infected animals entered the market, the consequences would be hard to imagine. I asked the member to keep watching, then called the police, the county market supervision bureau, and the livestock station. After hanging up, I drove with Sue King and followed the location sent by the member. Lin Jianjun was driving an old truck loaded with diseased carcasses toward an illegal slaughter site in a neighboring county. We followed from a distance. At checkpoint, police, market regulators, and livestock enforcement officers intercepted him from both sides. When the truck door opened, a sharp rotten smell rushed out. The truck bed was filled with diseased carcasses, some already deteriorating. Lin Jianjun was pulled from the cab, his face as pale as paper. Shaking badly, officers recorded the scene, preserved evidence, seized the carcasses for harmless treatment, and took Lin Jianjun away on the spot. This time, he had no chance to turn things around. The charges included producing and selling food that did not meet safety standards and interfering with animal disease prevention and quarantine. When the news returned to the village, no one felt sorry for him. People said he had gone completely mad and deserved legal punishment. 7 days after he was detained, Lai Huan divorced him and took the child back to her parents' home, moving away what little remained in the house. His once glorious family was completely broken. I had no time to focus on his ending. The cooperative was already on track. More than 30 member households built standardized barns. Su King and I visited each home to adjust feed formulas and disease prevention. All piglets entered smoothly. County leaders came several times and designated that cooperative as a rural revitalization demonstration cooperative for the whole county. My ecological pork sold extremely well at Zion Feng Fresh, and the King Feng brand became known. Distributors from other places began to contact me. Everything was moving in a better direction. 3 months later, the court heard Lin Jianjun's case. I attended as the reporter. The prosecution presented a complete evidence chain. The diseased pork materials he intended to sell, inspection reports, and his previous records of damaging production and spreading animal disease rumors. That evidence was solid. Lin Jianjun stood in the defendant's area, thin and worn, with none of his former arrogance left. In the end, the court sentenced him for producing and selling food that did not meet safety standards, and for offenses related to animal disease prevention and quarantine. Several penalties were combined, and he received 4 years in prison, plus a 100,000 yuan fine. Hearing the verdict, his legs gave way, and he collapsed in the defendant's seat. When he looked at me, his eyes were full of regret, but everything was too late. He had pushed his own life into the abyss. Outside the courthouse, Su King gently patted my shoulder and said it was over. I looked up at the sun and nodded. My heart had never been so calm. After that, I expanded the farm by another 20 mu beside the old mud pond. I built a feed processing plant and a slaughter workshop, forming a complete chain from breeding and raising to processing and sales. Young people in the village saw the opportunity and returned from the city. Some worked in breeding, some in sales, and some in live streaming. The whole village came alive. The once hollow village now had work and income for every household. New cement roads were built, streetlights installed, and a cultural square completed. Chief Wang often said that village change was because of me, but I knew it was not my achievement alone. Without Su King staying beside me, helping With policy and technology, I could not have reached that point without the villagers' trust. The cooperative could never have succeeded. 2 days before the new year, the cooperative held its year-end dividend meeting. The household that earned the most received more than 100,000 yuan, and even the least receive 20 to 30,000, holding their dividends. Villagers smiled so widely they could hardly close their mouths. Many apologized to me again and again. After the meeting, Su King pulled me to the hill beside the farm. We looked down at the brightly lit barns and village. She smiled and said I had created all of this. I looked at her and at everything below, filled with emotion. 1 year earlier, this had been a mud pond everyone despised. 1 year later, it had become a golden place that helped the whole village prosper. I turned to Su King and told her that half of everything belonged to her. From the beginning she had believed in me, without conditions. Without her, there would be no me today. I took a ring from my pocket, knelt on one knee and held it up. I thanked her for standing beside me through the year and asked whether she would keep walking with me, keep building ecological farming and live a good life together. Su King froze. Her eyes turned red, tears fell, and she nodded hard. She said yes. I placed the ring on her finger and held her tightly. Down in the village, firecrackers rose and echoed. The smell of celebration filled the air. The next spring, our ecological farming business reached another level. We cooperated with the Provincial Academy to establish an ecological farming research center with Su King as the director. The center studied probiotic fermented feed and circular farming, continuously improving technology, lowering costs, and raising pork quality. Kingfang ecological pork received national green food certification and entered national fresh food e-commerce platforms, selling both online and offline. The brand became more and more recognized. Farmers from other places came to visit and learn. I never held back. I taught the core ecological farming methods for free. Some asked whether I was afraid others would surpass me. I always smiled and said how far a person can go is not decided by how many people he surpasses, but by how many people he can lift up. Only when the industry is standardized and quality improves can everyone go farther. That summer, Lin Jianzhen's father, my uncle, became seriously ill and needed an expensive surgery. My aunt came to my farm, crying. Lin Jianzhen was in prison and could not help. The family had sold almost everything and still could not afford the operation. My parents felt sorry for them and said he was still my uncle after all. Blood ties mattered, and if I could help, I should. I stayed silent for a long time. I could not forget how Lin Jianzhen had cheated me, mocked me, damaged my work, and contaminated my feed, while my uncle and aunt once stood by him and said I did not know my place. But looking at my uncle lying weakly in the hospital bed, I softened. I paid all the surgery costs and invited the best doctor available. The operation succeeded, and my uncle was out of danger. My aunt held my hand and cried, apologizing again and again for the past. I said that past could pass. The money did not need to be returned. It was only the junior's duty toward an elder. I was not forgiving Lin Jianzhen. I simply did not want old grudges to make me ignore a life. After that, villagers respected me even more. They said I not only had ability, but also vision and heart. Before the Mid-Autumn festival, I visited Lin Jianzhen in prison more than A year inside had changed him. He was thin, numb, and no longer arrogant. When he saw me, he froze for a long time, then lowered his head and thanked me for paying his father's surgery fee. I told him not to thank me. The money was for my uncle, not for him. I calmly told him that his ending was caused by his own choices. I had not come to laugh at him, only to tell him his father had recovered well, so he did not need to worry. I told him to reform himself properly and start over after he came out. Lin Jianjun raised his head, tears falling. He covered his face and cried, saying he had been wrong, truly wrong. If he had not been blinded by greed, withheld my share, and opposed me, he would not have fallen to that point. He said he was sorry to me and sorry to his family. He cried for a long time, releasing all that regret in his heart. I watched him and knew he was not lying, but the most useless thing in the world is regret after everything is done. If he had held even a little conscience before, he would not have reached that ending. When visiting time ended, I stood up and left the prison. Sunlight fell warmly on me. From the moment he said sorry, that grievance between us was truly turned over. It was not forgiveness, it was letting go. Time passed quickly. In the next 2 years, my ecological farming business developed faster and faster. Qingfeng ecological pork became a well-known ecological pork brand in the province. We opened more than 20 directly operated stores, cooperated with over 200 high-end supermarkets, and annual sales passed 200 million yuan. The cooperative expanded from 1 village to 8 surrounding towns, with more than 500 member farmers and over 1,000 jobs created. It became a famous provincial demonstration cooperative, Suking, and I held our wedding 2 years earlier. On a wedding day, the whole village celebrated. Villagers came voluntarily to help. Red lanterns hung from the village entrance all the way to my home. Livelier than the new year, Chief Wang served as our witness and said into the microphone that Su, King and I were the village's great benefactors. Without us, the village would not be what it was. He wished us a happy marriage and a lifetime together. Looking at Su, King in her wedding dress, my heart was full of happiness. From meeting in the mud pond to walking side by side, we had endured wind and rain together and watch each other grow. She was my partner, my beloved and the most precious person in my life. In the second year after our marriage, we had a lovely daughter. Her nickname was Nayanian and her full name was Chen Nanking, taking characters from my name and Su King's. My parents held their granddaughter every day and smiled endlessly. Their health improved and the old sadness disappeared. The village changed completely. The poor mountain hollow became a famous ecological farming demonstration village in the province. Every household built new houses and bought cars. The primary school was renovated, and a nursing home was built. Elderly people and children could live peacefully. The old mud pond became an ecological farming sightseeing park. Many city visitors came to tour and experience it, making it an internet-famous spot and helping village restaurants and homestays grow. People said I had turned the rotten mud pond into a treasure basin, but I knew the real change did not come from me alone. It came from everyone's wish for a better life, from scientific farming technology, and from an era that kept getting better. That autumn, Lin Jianjun was released after serving his sentence. 4 years in prison had turned his hair gray and made him look more than 10 years older. He did not return to that village. He went to work somewhere else and never came back. Occasionally villagers met him at a construction site, carrying bricks and living a hard life. When someone told me, I only smiled quietly. Everyone chooses his own road. He had paid for his mistakes. How he walked forward was up to him. In the 12th lunar month, a heavy snow fell. I stood on a hill beside the farm with Sue King and our daughter, looking at the white village below and the brightly lit barns. Our daughter stretched out her little hand toward the snow, babbling happily. Sue King leaned on my shoulder and said time had passed so quickly. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had gone by. I nodded. 5 years earlier, Lin Jianjun had pushed me away with 80,000 yuan. I had almost nothing and was mocked by everyone. 5 years later, I had my own business, a wife who loved me, a lovely daughter, a harmonious family, and a village that had grown prosperous with us. I had become the person I wanted to be. I kissed Sue King gently on the forehead and smiled. The better days were still ahead. The snow grew heavier, falling over the fields and hills. The lively pig farm looked as if the land had been covered with a thick, warm quilt. A timely snow promises a good harvest. I knew the next year would be another year of abundance. My life and this land both had a future as pure and open as the falling snow. The road ahead was bright,